Now, this is actually the first file that Angular calls whenever it boots up your application, and it's really simple. We just have one line of code in here, and that is bootstrap, and this is bootstrapping this right here. So what bootstrapping means is just basically prepare or load in your root component. So every Angular application needs a root component or the main component. So since we only have one, that's what we're doing right here. And these right here are just imports. Now, I do want to touch on something real quick, and that is the difference between the way that we import this and this right here. So, of course, we already know what this is. App component, we're basically importing this file right here. Now, this file right here is one that came with Angular, and of course, this is just includes the function so we can actually bootstrap our component. But notice this. Notice whenever we write the file pass that whenever we are importing one of our components that we created, we use this .forward. This is a relative path. That means look in the same directory as I'm in right now. So this, whenever you don't use this .forward, what Angular does is it automatically looks in this node modules. So again, anytime you need to import something from node_modules, make sure not to include a relative path like this because it pretty much has node modules in there by default. So I just want to point that out in case you're getting some errors whenever you import things. So again, all this does right here is it loads in the root component. All right. So over in index.html, before we start coding our very first component, I want to talk you guys through what all of this is, and 99% of this you guys already know. So this is just the title, meta tags, the link, and right now I actually just linked to Bootstrap, and this is Twitter Bootstrap, just so my buttons will look pretty, not to be confused with this Bootstrap function, which is completely unrelated. So again, this is just a style sheet to make things look pretty. If you want, then go ahead and delete this if you guys aren't really big on Bootstrap. These are all of the node modules that we downloaded, all of the ones that we need, and all of this is just basic HTML. The only other thing that's kind of weird is this, which I talked to you guys through in the last video. So the last piece of the puzzle we need to explain is this script tag. So this is your system.js library, and what this is it's for module loading. In other words, all of the code that we write, it gets included automatically, and that way we don't have to go through and include each of these files and all of the modules that we need one by one. So this system.js, it takes care of all of that behind the scenes by default, and if we ever need to tweak anything, then I'll talk you guys through that, but it's pretty cool. So just to give you guys a real brief overview of this, and just to kind of explain what's going on in case you get any bugs or anything, this packages setting right here, this tells system.js what to do whenever it sees a request for a new file. So one important thing right here is the default extension JS. So hop back over in main.js for a second and notice this. See, whenever we're importing or including other files, we don't write the file extension. So even though that we're including app.component.ts right here, we don't want to write that explicitly. That's because whenever we're using TypeScript, it automatically knows to look with a file with a TS extension. Also, remember that what we're going to do is behind the scenes, we're automatically translating this to JavaScript. So if you write TS right there, it's going to look for a TypeScript file and not a JavaScript file. So since this doesn't have any file extension, whenever JavaScript looks for another file, it's going to say, yeah, we actually don't even have app.component. This isn't even a JavaScript file. So what Angular does, and actually what system.js does, is it actually tacks on that JS extension at the end of all of these imports and file names right there. So that way we can write TypeScript and our browser can use JavaScript, and we don't have to manually change every single file extension. Pretty awesome, eh? And of course, this last line right here, all that's happening is the system.import is calling your app.js main file. So this is your main JavaScript file. In other words, it's just the starting point for your program.